Hey folks, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and I recently did a review of Outgunned, the RPG designed for running fast and furious action-adventure games. Outgunned is an evolution of Broken Compass, a game that came out just a few years ago, which focused on pulp action-adventure. These two games are really similar to each other, and honestly, I think Outgunned has basically replaced Broken Compass, but there are differences between these two games, and I'm going to spend a few minutes outlining them here. First, terminology has changed between the two games, and for the most part, Outgunned does a better job at describing things the way players would expect them. For example, hit points are called grit in Outgunned versus luck in Broken Compass. And luck in RPGs is usually a resource you use versus your hit points. So Outgunned does that better. There's fewer attributes in Outgunned by one, but two more skills. And these attributes and skills are more precisely named versus Broken Compass. For example, there was a culture skill in Broken Compass, which covered general knowledge, but that's now called Know in Outgunned, which is much more clear to players what it does. These tweaks just make Outgunned a little bit more intuitive. And my personal terminology peeve in Broken Compass has been addressed in Outgunned, which is Broken Compass called getting bonus dice into your pool advantage. And I took great umbrage to that in my review because I said the term advantage has already been well established in Dungeons and Dragons, and my group's always found it awkward using that term since it's a little different in Broken Compass. Well, Outgunned fixes that and just calls them get +1 dice or get -1 dice, which is much easier to communicate and play. Thank you for listening to me, two little mice. But both games use the same fast-paced, push-your-luck dice mechanics. You roll a handful of dice based on your skills and attributes, and you look for matches on the dice. The more matches you roll, the better the result. You can re-roll twice in both games, betting on extra successes, or losing them all. Both games have a jackpot, which is when you roll 6 successes, you get to take over the turn as the game master, which is a fun but rare narrative mechanic. Outgunned also has an adrenaline system, which is a resource that heroes can use to roll extra dice. You usually start with a point or two of it, and they can spend it during play to roll an extra die, or sometimes even use a special power, or spend 6 of them at once to gain something called the Spotlight, which lets their hero do something truly amazing like saving friends who are mortally wounded, getting an extra extreme success, or just doing something awesome in the middle of a scene. Both game systems have conditions. They're called feelings in Broken Compass, and they're called, well, conditions in Outgunned. Broken Compass has positive conditions which add dice. For example, you could feel powerful or daring, which would give you bonus dice to roll. Outgunned only uses negative conditions, like you look tired, which gives negative dice. I kind of miss the positive conditions in Broken Compass, but the lack of them in Outgunned does streamline the system, and it makes it easier on GMs since Broken Compass had a lot more conditions you had to think about handing out. I even pointed that in my review, as sometimes as a GM you'd miss that opportunity. So I think Outgunned's simplification of it is probably for the best, and you could always make up a positive condition if you wanted to in that game. Also missing from Outgunned are tags, specialties that player characters had that they could use during play to get a bonus die. For example, if my hero Jack Hunter is an archaeologist, he would get a bonus die for dealing with archaeology and antiquities. Those don't exist in Outgunned. Well, at first I thought I'd miss them. The ones in Broken Compass, I found over time they could be easily abused. For example, if I have archaeology and you have heroism as your tag, well, that one's going to be a lot more useful than the other game after game. So instead, Outgunned gives characters 3 feats, which are much more specific special abilities, like Full Throttle, which gives you bonuses when you're at top speed, or Hacker, which grants you free rerolls when you're using a computer. While the feat system is Outgunned is nothing really groundbreaking and it's familiar, it does help players customize their characters a little bit more. And it gives the players more options when their characters advance, since players can gain new feats. The lack of advancement options in Broken Compass was definitely a gap in that system, which really made it best for one-shots, but Outgunned does a little bit better here because of the feats. I still don't think either game system is great for a long-running campaign, but Outgunned will handle short campaigns better than Broken Compass. The combat system sees the most changes between the two versions of the game. In Broken Compass, all the bad guys had effectively 3 hit points, and they were really only different in their general challenge level, like how many successes you needed to hurt them. This made combat fast, but also meant in play, battles would really start to feel the same from one fight to the next, since fighting a group of cultists wielding knives was effectively the same as fighting a pack of wolves. In Outgunned, enemies have grit or hit points just like heroes, and their hit point totals can range a lot more. Their attacks and defenses are split, so you could have a tough armored target that isn't dealing a lot of damage. Any bad guys can also get optional special abilities and feats that they can use, some of which they get to use all the time. Sometimes they can spend their own adrenaline points to do things like throw a grenade or pull off a special move in the middle of combat. It's a lot more fun to GM bad guys in Outgunned because you have resources to spend, but it does take a little bit more work to understand the system before you can put together a balanced Outgunned encounter together for your players. But I think that's worth it. The extra level of complexity in Outgunned just to me makes combat a little more robust and feels better. Death works differently between the two systems also. In Broken Compass, if you run out of grit or luck, you had to flip your luck coin to see if you live or die. In Outgunned, each hero has 6 cylinders on their character sheet, and if you ever run out of grit, you now have to roll a die and roll higher than how many cylinders that you have filled in. It's almost impossible to die the first time, you just have to roll higher than a 1, but each time you roll on one of these death rolls, you have to fill in another cylinder. So the game will continually get more and more dangerous as you go. I prefer this Outgunned system over Broken Compasses, which just really did feel like a coin toss. Although, if you're running a one-shot game, you may want to start your players with more of those cylinders filled in. Otherwise, like a single 3 or 4 hour session game might feel too easy. The two games feature different subsystems too. Outgunned has a fantastic system for chases. I really love it, it's a strong point. It also has a system for turning up the heat on players, which makes the situations in the game more deadly as the game goes on. And it's got a system for finding weak points in enemies, which gives non-combat heroes something to do during combat. But I think for a weak point system, it's actually a pretty weak system, since it basically just lets those non-combatants roll on a random chart to see what happens. It doesn't often match their actions. I don't really like it, I don't use it. Broken Compass, on the other hand, has a Doomsday Clock mechanic, which let you track your rival's progress during a game. That was really cool for some types of pulp games where heroes are racing against a rival to find a lost artifact. But honestly, I never used it much since I felt like it was really only great for that one specific kind of adventure. Finally, Outgunned so far seems to have slightly better virtual tabletop support over Broken Compass, but it's still early and it's not quite ready for prime time. I'm hoping that Outgunned garners more fans this time around and folks with more engineering ability than I have who can make that VTT support really shine. So as you can see, the two games are very, very similar, with Outgunned taking advantage of a few years of feedback and evolution to make for a more robust, streamlined game. Really, there's no reason to go back to playing Broken Compass, especially since once Outgunned Adventure comes out, which will support more of the same genres that Broken Compass supported, like 1930s pulp action or Wild West, then it will really truly replace Broken Compass for good. So if you're looking for a great fast-paced, push-your-luck action RPG, I definitely go for Outgunned over Broken Compass at this point. If you want to try out either system, go check out my blog, oneshotadventures.com, where I have free adventures for both Outgunned and Broken Compass, but obviously the two systems are so interchangeable you could port them back and forth pretty easily. Do you have a preference of which game you like? If so, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion on these games. And if you want to see more reviews and videos like this one, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button like you would punch a terrorist goon on a rooftop. Until next time, I'm JC, and I'll see you soon.